Hi, my name is Carlos Rodiles, and this is our problem to solve. My partners on my team are Maite Caroline and Ever Diaz.
Hi.
And next, my partners are going to show you how to solve this problem step by step.
So hi, I'm Maite, and the problem received is 8 cosine squared of 4x minus 9, the whole thing squared, plus e at the square root of 4 explanation to the 4x. And now Ever's going to explain how to solve the first part.
So, as you can see here, this whole function over here, the equation over here, is being affected by the 2. It's all squared. So what you gotta do here is a law of
It's a chain rule.
It's chain rule. That's what I was gonna say. Okay, so you get your exponent over here. You turn it into its coefficient, and you subtract 1 to the coefficient. That ends up being 1, which ends up being, well, you don't need to put it in there. After that, you have to get the derivative of the inner function and multiply it by this function. Yeah. Then after you get this, this being 8 cosine squared of 4x minus 9, well, as you can see here, the cosine squared of 4x acts also as a chain rule, because the cosine squared acts as if the whole thing was squared.
Okay, but before we go to the next step, we're going to see the second part of the equation, which is the e to the square root of e of the exponent of 4x. And to do that, the first step, we have to remember that the square root can also be expressed as a number and an exponent of 1/2. And we write that down, and that's the first step.
Okay, so after you get the derivative of this, you get, well, you use the chain rule again, but you can just, 9 is not important because the derivative of 9 would be 0, so that just cancels out. So you get a law of, quotient rule over here, so you get your exponent and you turn it into a coefficient again that multiplies times 8. So you get 16 cosine of 4x, and you have to multiply that by times the inner function's derivative, like so. And let's backtrack a little here. You can just simplify this whole thing by multiplying, just basic maths. And after you do that, you get 16 cosine squared of 4x minus 18 times 16 cosine of 4x times the derivative of cosine of 4x.
And now we're back to the second part of the equation, which was stopped here, which was the exponent of 1/2. And now we have to apply a chain rule. It's the same case of this one. This would be the exponent. You put the exponent in front of the original equation. And as we did there, here we put minus 1. This would be 1/2 minus 1, which becomes the negative. And then we also have to multiply by the derivative of the inner function, which is this, and we state it here.
So, after you've multiplied this whole thing, you get 16 cosine squared of 4x minus 18 times 16 cosine 4x times the derivative of cosine. Okay, so the law of sines and cosines indicate, the derivative of cosine would be minus sine times the derivative of the contents of sine or cosine, respectively. We just leave this like it was, and then you multiply this times minus sine 4x times 4. Okay, after you've multiplied that, you get minus 16 cosine of 4x times sine 4x. The negative sign just carries over, and then you multiply all this by times 4, and this is just left as it is untouched.
Okay, now we're going back to the second part of the equation, which we left here, which is being negative, and we need to remember that when an exponent is negative, we put it on the lower part, we make it a fraction. So in this case, we would put 1 over the 2 of square root of e at the exponent of 4x. We also had to derivative this function here. So to derivate the e on the explanation of something, you have to do the derivative of the exponent, which in this case before, and you put it as a coefficient, and we leave this thing exactly the same. And after we did this, we can simplify. This is 1 times this, so we just put it on top of the fraction that we had before. So at this point we're left with this part of the equation here, and this can be simplified. So we know that it's 4 over 2, and they can be both divided by 2, which becomes 2 over 1. We have to put a 1, so it just becomes 2. And the second part that's being multiplied here and here would be e at the exponent of 4x, and the square root of e elevated to the 4x, which then could be simplified to become e at the exponent of 2x, which then become 2 times e to the exponent of 2x, and this cannot be furthermore simplified. So at this point, the second part of the equation has been simplified, and this first part also, but this, we have this 4, which is here alone, which can be simplified, and to do that we will multiply it by the 16, which is this part of this parenthesis, which then becomes, the first part stays the same, and it becomes minus 64, and the rest stays the same, cosine of 4x, sin of 4x, plus the 2 times x to the exponent of 2x that we had before. So after doing all these steps, the final answer that we have would be 16 cosine squared of 2x minus 18 multiplied by minus 64 cosine of 4x sine of 4x plus 2e at the exponent of 2x. And that's the final answer.
Okay, the rules that we used to solve this problem were the chain rule, exponent rule, trigonometric rules, and the e rule. Besides factorizing, because that comes with whole mathematics stuff.